Here's my nephew Dan demonstrating the windmill that he built on his own.
This windmill is made for miniature golf courses. It is powered purely by the wind, which of course we don't have any in here, despite having a lot of beans for breakfast. I will get this windmill going, and in the wind it will actually sustain itself. All the blades are put on the prescribed 23-degree angle, and the golf ball will not fit through the hole when those propeller blades are down.
I'll walk around to get a view of the whole thing. Anything else about it you want to say?
Yep, redwood, custom-made redwood siding, sliced up at a 10-degree angle on my table saw. And then once it's painted, we got some big dramatic windows that are at the top of the A-frame, as well as some dormers that come out of the side that emulate the Transamerica building in San Francisco. The shaft is mounted on automated pillow bearings that provide minimum friction. And so we're hoping when there's a good sea breeze that puppy's going to turn on its own.
And what motivated you to make this windmill?
A friend of mine bought a house that and inherited a putting green in their backyard, and they're not golfers, and they demanded a miniature golf windmill. And I think they're almost horrified that they're going to have to keep this thing in their backyard now because I took the time to make it.
And how long has it taken you so far to...
This was one of the longer projects I've ever worked on. It probably took about 6 weekends, working about 3 or 4 hours a day. It's a lot of wood, it's a lot of 2x4s, a lot of plywood, a lot of engineering to figure out how to make that propeller so that it's optimal and that it actually moves with reduced friction. But it's all worth it.
And how much do you think the whole thing weighs?
Probably around 40 to 50 pounds, and it was probably about between $150 and $200 worth of materials to make it. With just the bearings alone were about $20 a piece.
And now these little slats here.
The clapboards.
Clapboards.
Those are made of redwood, and so these probably won't be painted by the owner of this, who I'm giving it to, my friends. They'll probably just be stained with deck stain. And as you can see, the redwood has different types of colors. So these are from the same board. Redwood, the sapwood can be white sometimes, and the heartwood is red. So as I slice through the board, you get some striation. You see it here. You got white, red, etc.
And you cut all these pieces yourself?
Yeah, I started with redwood 2x4s and sliced them at a 10-degree angle by beveling the blade on my table saw. And so they're about 1.5 inches long, and they're about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick at their thickest part. And so the water should shed off beautifully in the rain.
And where did you get the design for this?
I kind of came up with it on my own just by looking at different windmill styles across the world and looking at different miniature golf windmill types. So some of the other designs I thought were a little cooler, but were incredibly difficult to make. Even just making an A-frame from the perspective of all the angles that are required was pretty difficult, and making one that's more like a pyramid or one that's got angles coming in from all 4 directions creates some incredibly complicated cuts. And so I stuck with something a little simpler, just an A-frame type design.
And how did you discover the 23-degree angle
that's
feature?
a great question. So I looked up YouTube videos for how to design the perfect windmill, and I found this YouTube video from about a 12-year-old kid who studied the exact same question as part of his science fair project. He did a beautiful project that involved woodworking and engineering, and he actually looked at the output, the amount of amperage he could get out of different windmill components or settings, and the only variable that he changed was the angle of the blades relative to 0. and he found that 23 degrees was where he would get the most amperage produced in a constant wind flow. So it was a beautifully done science fair experiment, and so that's where I started.
And was it difficult fitting your wind,